Okay, so today we are back with another episode of Punt or No Punt with my friend Bean. How you doing, Bean?
This has been.
And he's been begging me to look at these hands, and I haven't seen any of them. Can you confirm, Bean?
He has not seen any of them.
So Punt or No Punt, in essence, Bean loads up some hands that I've never seen before, and we have a look, and I decide whether it's a punt or it's not a punt. So I believe we have three hands today. Is that correct, Bean?
We've got three hands. I played them last night, and they're very interesting spots. And I've stacked them in order of interestingness.
Brilliant.
So
Okay.
it's going to get exponentially better as the video goes on.
Brilliant. Well, I like to hear that. Right, so let's crack on with hand number one, which looks like aces.
It's aces.
So hard to punt with aces a lot of the
Yeah.
time, but you know it's possible for sure. So we open up the gun, which we like, and small blind calls, which is interesting. And he looks pretty bad. Hasn't three bet before. Has a calling range on the small blind, so we can safely assume he's not going to be that good that often. That's probably going to hit his range quite well. Like eights and sevens, he's going to have for sure. Stuff like 10-9, he's probably going to have in there, and then like maybe tens that he didn't want to three bet. Stuff like that. It's hard to say because he hasn't three bet before, but and it is a really small sample. But generally speaking, you're still going to be able to bet here. Obviously, you're going to have all the overpairs that he doesn't have. So you do bet, and he elects to call. That's fine. Turn's very interesting. I suppose he elects to check. Okay, and you have a spot here where you could probably decide to check back. I think this card is like really, really, really good for his range. Like when you think about the range of hands he's going to actually call flop bet with, he's probably going to pitch like all those overcard, Broadway suited combos. Maybe he'd float with like King Queen of Hearts and stuff, but you know he might fold some of them. At least the diamond ones he's going to fold. But he's going to continue with stuff like eights and sevens, which he probably wouldn't raise because he locks the board up really hard. So he could even have stuff like 10-8, obviously 10-9, but we do want to charge stuff like 10-9. So I don't mind betting, but you could also mix in a check here sometimes. We elect to bet.
I go ahead and bet.
The problem with betting is that when we get check raise and his range connects really well with this board, we're going to be in some really tough spots. And I think you avoid them by checking back here at some frequency at least. We also have the ace of spades, so when we do get raised, he's going to have less bluffs, which isn't the best thing ever. But as played, we decide to bet, which I think is okay. And we do get raised, and now we're in this situation that we were talking about, where you know when you value betting, you want to be able to like withstand raises happily. I'm not sure we withstand this raise like very happily. I mean, you're not in the best spot in the world, are you? I can't imagine you enjoyed it. Obviously, we have to call after we elect to bet, but when we have the ace of spades, this is a pretty rough spot because you know what is he bluffing with? Maybe King Queen of Spades, I guess. We could beat that, but he's gonna have stuff like maybe like 10-8 suited. He probably wouldn't do this with 10-9. He could have pocket sevens, pocket eights, pocket tens, very conceivably, maybe even pocket threes that he decided not to raise, but I think it probably got the flop he's gonna raise that at some frequency. So you know he has a lot of value, and we block some of his bluffs. So that's probably one of the reasons I'd like to just maybe check behind sometimes against a small blind calling range. But you know, I don't mind it. I just think we're now putting ourselves in some really, really tough spots on this river where we're going to have to call down and probably not win at this stake. So we do decide to call, which we have to do. And yeah, this river is pretty bad in some ways. I mean, it's hard for him to have a jack because you know, what jacks is he going to have? You know, he could have like Jack 9 suited, I guess, which is probably going to play like this. I don't. It's hard to say because we don't know anything about our opponent. Obviously, our opponent shouldn't have Jack 9 suited as a call pre-flop, but you know, it's hard to rule it out when we don't know anything. Queen Jack of Spades even is there now, so you know, I think when what does he do on the river? I think we just have to go ahead and fold here. The small blind's just going to connect way too well with this board. Even though he has like not many jacks, he certainly can have a few, and he can even have stuff like, you know, 9-6 suited, I guess, because we just don't know anything about him, and I just don't really feel like this is a very bluffy line. This is just very value-y. So I'd prefer to fold here, but I suppose because this is here we call. Yeah, I don't think I like that very much. I mean, I don't know what the result is, but Yeah, okay. Well, that's pretty unfortunate. It's tough to say. I mean, I'm supposed to say what if it's a punt or not before I see the hand, and I think people can probably gather that I would have said this is a punt. Specifically at this stake, he can just have like he could even value bet 2 pairs here, I suppose. But because it's a single race pot, we do get to have some jacks in our range. So I don't know. I think that my general leaning here is this is a micro stakes punt. And what I mean by that is I don't think you're going to find many people bluffing in this spot. But I guess, I'm certainly making a note on this guy that he's, a little bit fruity, because this flop call is, not something that I would agree with. His pre-flop call is just going to be very, very bad, as we know. And the turn, if you're going to do that, then you're just going to do it with everything, right? So against the opponent we don't know anything about, I think we can just go ahead and maybe check back some turns sometimes. I'm not sure what people are going to think about that, but I do think it's, when we get check raise, we're in some tough spots. I guess you're going to have to call down on some safer runouts, but I'm not sure this run out is one that we need to call down on. If that makes sense, especially when we have the ace of spades. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I agree. I mean, I just couldn't really see that he had many jacks after he raised the turn. I just thought if he's done that for a gut shot and he's made it, then fair enough. I mean, 5-6 suited, maybe 5-6 7-8 on the flop.
So are you saying that it's out of the realms of possibility that he's value betting a set here?
No, I don't think it's out of the realms of possibilities. I just thought, yeah, he could have a set, but usually you hear off them on the flop if they have a set. I know he might be protecting his range, but you'd expect a better player to do that, and he hasn't 3-bet pre-flop at all. He's got 0%, so I think he's probably going to raise a set on the flop.
Okay. I mean, that's a fair consideration. I guess we were talking about what jacks he can have. I mean, he can have like Queen Jack of Spades or a bluffed Queen Jack. I prefer bluffing with Queen Jack than this. But I just don't think that many people are going to be bluffing this river. I mean, obviously this guy is, and I wouldn't mind it at all if you had shown me this hand and then you played a very similar hand and you decided to call down. You could be like, this guy check raised me on the turn with literally a gut shot, an ace high. Then I'd be like, yeah, fair enough. But we didn't know that about this guy, So more often than not, I mean, this guy might have even found a check on the river if he had bricked, And obviously there's a lot of river cards that we're going to want to call down on, like maybe like a 3, a 7, because it makes less likely he has sets and stuff and 2 pairs. And like you say, he shouldn't have that many jacks, right? He can have Jack 9 suited, I suppose. I mean, he can have ace Jack off, so he can certainly have Jack 9 suited. So, I think we put ourselves in some unnecessary spots. One, by betting the turn, because then we just obviously we do want to protect against some of his range, but he is going to be doing quite well here, and obviously he's very wide. So I don't know. I'm going to go with punt, and I think that's reasonable.
Okay.
We're going to hand 2 now. Let's have a look. So our second hand is ace queen offsuit on the cutoff, and under the gun opens. I don't mind 3-betting. I don't really love calling. I'd much rather 3-bet, especially in position, and we seem to be a little bit deeper. So I might prefer to make this maybe 11, but I like you've tacked on an extra big blind for sure. Like 10 is fine. But yeah, I like 3-betting this hand for sure. And our opponent calls. The flop is interesting. Obviously, he can have stuff like Queen, all the Broadway combos of spades. He can certainly have. He can have stuff like 8-7 of spades, I suppose. But a lot of the spade combos are obviously blocked by the board, so he's not going to have stuff like 5-4 of spades, I don't think. But you are a bit deeper, so it's not out of the realms of possibility. Even stuff like ace king with the king of spades he can have. So we certainly want to bet to protect against like stuff like maybe pocket 10s. He's going to have some problems with here, obviously, and we want to knock out like some of those hands, especially ones without a spade. They're going to go ahead and fold, or we might get some value with them against them with a small bet, and also stuff like pocket 10s and pocket jacks that he has with a spade. They're obviously going to want to pay this bet, and we get to make some money off of those. Also stuff like 10-9 of hearts. He probably is going to fold them. here because he's going to struggle on a lot of runouts, and maybe even stuff like ace 10 suited, obviously. So we're doing quite well by betting here, I think, against his range. Well, we certainly have to consider the fact that he can have some good flushes, and he can also have like ace king with a, with or without a spade. So the turn is a 5 diamonds, which seems pretty safe. We talked about 7-8, but I probably don't think he would check call with 7-8 of like hearts or anything. So if he had 7-8, it's probably going to be spades anyway. So that doesn't really change anything. He shouldn't have pocket fives with a spade either, I don't think, or he might do at some frequency. He elects to check, and I think we can bet again. And yeah, I like the sizing. Obviously, you're sizing up for a river jam, but you're obviously not. I mean, you're sizing up with your whole range, I guess. Is that right? And then you're making it seem to your opponent that you're going to be jamming a lot of rivers when you get to get a lot of value against those kinds of hands that we were talking about on the flop by betting this sizing, and then you can consider, obviously, I assume you're going to be checking back quite a few rivers. Would that be fair?
Yeah.
Right. So we elect to bet, and our opponent calls, and he still has all those flushes that he's certainly going to slow play and things. This makes it less likely he has a slow played set, and I think he probably, if he had pocket 9s or 6s, he'd have probably raised before this point. Does he donk river? No? Okay, and now you have a spot where you're wondering whether you can get value. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
So,
and in my mind, I'm pretty sure I can get value here because it looks to me like he would do this with a king of spades on both streets.
Okay, but what king of spades is gonna be able to call your jam? You have to find a hand that you can get called by, right? So even if he was like clinging on with, something like 10-9, I don't think he would call 2 streets, but
I don't think he's called 2 streets with a 9. He could do it with ace jack.
Yeah, it's really tough for him to have a 9. As obviously there's 2 9s on the board, and we put a lot of pressure on the turn. I think his most likely holding is going to be something like ace king with the king of spades, or maybe yeah, I think that's probably what we're going to show up with when we lose here. The problem is what calls our bet. You're looking at things like ace 10 suited and ace jack suited, and remember there's only going to be 2 combos of those left. Obviously we don't beat ace queen, so that makes no sense either. Ace king we lose to. He's going to have some slow played flushes. He might have some boats sometimes, but he's probably going to fast play those, but I don't think he would fast play flushes all too often. He might do it some frequency, but if he had like king queen of spades, I think he would probably play it like this for sure, because how on earth can you call unless you have like top set? So I think that this has to be a check back. There's just too few combos of hands that we're going to get value from. I think you're specifically looking at like ace 10 and ace jack, and that's 4 combos of hands. I think that's just way too optimistic, because I can't see what else calls you. I don't think he's going to call a jam with jacks and 10s and stuff with a spade. Like obviously we got value from those on the turn, but we certainly can't be looking to get the whole lot on the river when he can have all these other hands we're talking about. So if you jam here, then I know exactly what I'm going to say.
Oh dear.
Yeah, Beanie Boy, this is a punt. In general, this is a punt. You're going to get a lot of folds, and you're going to get the times you do get called, more often than not, you're going to probably lose, I think.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know whether you win or lose, but I'm saying punt before I see. Oh, okay. Well, then that makes a lot of sense. He's going to have that a lot, every frequency. He's going to do exactly what he's just done with that hand. And he has the king of spades blocker as well, right? So he blocks a lot of your value. So the cooldown is essential from him. He certainly has to, especially if, I don't think many people are jamming ace queen here, but you can certainly be jamming ace king. So he can't really fold because, he blocks aces and he blocks good flushes. So he can never fold this river, and he's always going to have this combo, and he's going to have, other ace king combos that don't have a spade that he's probably going to have to call with as well. Because he doesn't have, many pocket nine. Obviously, he doesn't have pocket 9s left, and he's probably going to raise some sets earlier than this. He might slow play some flushes, but there's really not many combos of that. So he's going to have to probably call with ace king most of the time. But certainly calling with ace king with a spade, his play is very normal here. I think he's played his hand very well, and I think that you've punted off 125 big blinds. What do you think?
It's a punt, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's a punt. Do you agree? Now that we've talked about it.
Yeah, I should have just checked the river.
Yeah, I think your play before is fine. Like I like the turn value bet because we can get value from like single spade hands, like jacks and tens. He's gonna have all the time. Maybe even pocket queens with a spade. He's gonna have. So you know, even like ace 10 suited is going to be in a tough spot. It's probably going to have to fold, but ace jack suited obviously is in there as well. But then when we get to the river, those hands are going to have a tough time calling. So it makes it much less attractive to go for the jam, I think. Sorry, Bean. It's a punt.
2-0. Well, 0-2.
Yeah, 0-2. Let's go ahead and take a look at the third hand and hope we can redeem ourselves. Okay, so our last hand is apparently, according to Bean, in the interestingness quote scale, this is up there. So we're under the gun with Jack 10 of spades, and I assume we open, which is good. Oh, okay. So we're snap pinking, but this guy has played 12-10-0 over 85 hands. So we're certainly not going to be thinking about doing any 4-betting. We have a really good hand. I assume does it fold to us? I don't know if it folds to us. We have a really good hand, like we've got a potential deep against a potentially horrific opponent, but an opponent that's going to probably be nitty quite often. But if he's going to be nitty and have like really strong hands all the time, obviously his sizing is pathetic, and you know we can clearly pink him straight away. You know, we want to play this hand for sure. Nothing I would have done differently so far. But I'm certainly proceeding with caution on this kind of board, and I think we have a clear, obviously, check with our whole range. And he could probably use some larger sizes here, but we'll see what he does. I like the sizing here, actually. Not sure he knows exactly what he's doing, but I prefer a larger size being deeper on this board texture. And we can't do anything but call. That's a very interesting card. And I think, obviously, we're going to be checking our range here, simplifying our strategy, and he checks behind. So if he had bet, I have a feeling you might at some frequency have raised, but I would prefer to just call still, just based on what we know about this opponent. He's going to have some very strong hands. He might even check stuff like, you know, queens, kings, and aces back here on this turn, potentially, not wanting to get check raised. But, you know, if he bets, I think he's going to have a hand that he's going to want to stick around with quite often. I don't think we need to raise. Obviously, we do have another street, and if he does check back, we get to lead a lot of rivers. So I don't mind. I don't mind his play checking back. Obviously, it's hard to assume anything from this guy when he could have misclicked pre. That's a consideration, but then his 85 hands playing very strangely is certainly a consideration as well. But were you thinking about check raising, or do you think you were just going to go for a check call?
I think I would have check called just because I've hit the jack and I've got an element of showdown value.
Yeah.
But if I didn't have that pair, I would definitely have check raised.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't mind check raising. But I think, yeah, like you said, you maybe. I'm trying to think whether you have any other good like bluffing candidates. Considering obviously we had some good flush draws on the flop, we probably would have raised those. So I don't mind it. I just think when he bets this turn, he's probably not going to be doing a lot of folding. And then we're probably in a situation where we have less equity than he does if he decides to call a check raise. So I don't mind it like this, and then we can see how we can maybe extract something on the river, which we'll see now. And we make a flush and a paired board, and I think we have to bet. If we check to him, he's gonna call. He's gonna bet with like kings and aces that he decided to check back. If he raises the river, we're going to be in a real tough spot. But I prefer to go ahead and bet ourselves, because I think we can probably extract like maybe close to pot value here from those kind of hands, and maybe like ace queen that he checked back or something. I'm not really sure, but I certainly like betting here in this spot against this kind of opponent. He could have checked back the turn to call a lot of rivers, and we don't really want him to check back. Obviously, that would feel really bad. So betting is good. And our opponent, fuck. Okay, so let's
200 big ones.
Let's think about this a little bit. So, man, this is a very interesting spot. I mean, immediately I'm thinking I'm probably not going to be good here. I don't see really people use this sizing as a bluff. So what do we have? We have a few sets. Obviously we have less sets now that we have the 9 on the river. Pocket jacks we're probably going to do some raising at some frequency this deep, even with pocket jacks on this kind of board. Pocket 4s we are going to have, but we also probably would have done some check raising on the flop. So our flushes are going to be some of our best hands, actually. We're not going to have pocket queens, so we're not going to have many boats, basically, I don't think. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I'd agree
We're
with
gonna
that.
have-
I think I'm check raising 4s
Yeah, being this deep.
and jacks.
Yeah, I think being this deep against this particular opponent, I think we're probably not going to have many boats in our range, and that's a consideration. But does our opponent have boats? This is the question. Now, when our opponent jams for 200 bigs, he's saying he has a boat, right? Now, unless he is like the biggest nit of all time, and he checked back on this board thinking we could have king 10 with like queens or jacks, then he's not really going to have that many boats. Pocket 9s, he might not 3-bet pre being this nitty. He might not. He probably doesn't have. I'm just thinking. I don't think he probably doesn't obviously have like queen 9 or jack 9. Pocket jacks and pocket queens. I can't understand why you wouldn't want to bet the turn. And
That's what I mean. I think anything that he's betting with on the flop from if he's got 3 of a kind, he continues with on the turn, but he slows down. So that's why I got confused a bit.
And then some of his good flush draws are going to probably want to bet this turn as well. But it's hard to say because this guy could just be really, really bad. And if we try and make sense of his line, then we might just level ourselves into calling. It's not beyond the realms of possibility that he just turns up with a full house here. I wouldn't even be surprised if he had something like kings. Because, I've seen some seriously weird stuff from this kind of player. For him to be bluffing, what kind of bluffing hands do I like from our opponent? I think, if you had something like, if you turned maybe something with a jack in it into a bluff that he checked back on the turn to block pocket jacks, that seems like a pretty good candidate because we can also have jacks.
But I think, but if he's bluffing, we're so deep now. Effective stacks, we've both got 200 behind. I think he's got the opportunity to continue barreling on the turn with his bluff, even overbetting if he wants, and then still having pretty much a pot-sized bet on the river to bluff with if he wants. So by him checking that turn, it just really threw the hand into a weird place.
Yeah.
So
I think I assume we call. I think I don't blame you for calling. Do I expect you to be good? Probably not very often. But, this guy's just very nitty. Like, is someone playing this nitty over 85 hands going to randomly barrel off 200 bigs on the river with, like, some rando bluff? I'm not sure.
It's basically a full house or nothing, isn't it?
Yeah, the bet sizing to me doesn't even feel like it can be, like, ace-high flush. But I guess if he was really good, he would know that we maybe don't have many boats because we would probably do a lot of check raising flop with them. So, this is a real tough spot. I think that I'm not sure whether you're going to have ace king of spades here, or you're going to have ace 10 of spades. You're going to have ace jack of spades. If we don't have any boats, which we probably don't, then we're going to have to choose some flushes to call with. And do you know what? If we're going to call with a flush, I would prefer to call with a flush that has a jack in it, so that we can box some full houses. So you could maybe consider, I don't know, you could maybe consider folding like king 10 of spades, and then calling with jack 10 of spades. Do you know what I mean? Just so that we can block an extra boat that he's obviously repping. But he'd have to have checked that back on the turn. So, my curiosity would make me want to call here. Would I think I was going to be good? No. I'd be very upset to see someone check back queens on this turn, this deep, and then just own me on the river like this. I think I'd probably end up folding, but I certainly can't call this a punt, especially with the jack of spades. Are you calling?
Do you want to see it?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I have no idea what he has. Let me think about what.
Look at the pot size.
That's a big pot. Let me think about what you could have as a bluff. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Like, I guess a jack would be a good card to have.
You want to see it?
Yeah. Goodness me. So he's taken the ace of spades and just gone with it. I mean, yeah, I mean, I guess if he thinks we're going to struggle to have boats and he can block the best flushes that you have, then that's not going to be too bad, I suppose. Is he gonna do this with a nut flush though? I mean, obviously he can have ace king of spades, but is he ever going to check back the turn? I don't see it. Like you say, like he's going to want to bet a lot of the hands that he wants to bet for value on this river. He's going to want to bet turn. So his play is very creative, but certainly on the punty side from him. Like there's just no need to do this kind of thing, is there? And not blocking any full houses is not good, I don't think. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, in the hand at the time, I definitely didn't analyze it to the extent that we just have there.
Yeah, no.
I think I felt like I was good. It didn't make sense his check on the turn if he had a set. Him betting the flop and me blocking his spades, some of his spade draws. It just didn't feel right. And it was a lot of money to put in, but I don't know. And that's just pretty much where my analysis stopped. You know, the timer goes down pretty quick. And as you've seen, I miss it sometimes. I just have to act on how I feel based on what I've thought about. And
I think having the jack is really good because obviously we can block some weird check back set. And we do block, like you say, we block ace 10 of spades and we block ace jack of spades. So if he was going to do that with this, then you know that's good as well. So blocking those two, like you say, is good, and then blocking the jack for some full houses is good. You know, like I said before, I saw the showdown. I don't. If you're going to call, given that we think we probably don't have many boats, this is probably the hand I'm most happy to call down with, blocking a couple of like suited nut flush draws on the turn. But like you say, like why would you not want to bet ace? You know, some of his really good flush draws on the turn.
I think you bet with it all. The only flush draw he can have really is ace king of spades, and he's going to barrel that turn with that all the time. You would think.
Yeah.
But even jacks, if he flops jacks, you barrel on the turn, especially how connected that board is.
Yeah, and obviously on the odd occasion that this guy decides to do something really tricky and check back jacks, there's only one combo left, right? Because we block it. So,
yeah, and I block it.
He'd have to have been doing this with like specifically pocket queens. I can't imagine a world where you wouldn't want to bet this turn with pocket queens, but we might live in it.
Fours, he raised me pre. I don't think he's doing that with fours. So when you think about it, I think it's a nice play from my side, but I didn't think about it as much as I just have. I just sort of felt it in the moment.
In a nutshell, he struggles to have boats, and we block some. And he struggles to have good flushes because we also block some of them. So, you know, we also unblock the ace of spades, which I guess if he's going to bluff for something, I'd much prefer to bluff with like turn a pair into a bluff here, because we can block some full houses. So it's less likely that, you know, we're going to be able to call him down with the stronger parts of our range that maybe get here. There's a good chance this guy's just, you know, decided we didn't have any boats and thought we couldn't call. There's also a chance that he has absolutely no idea what he's doing. So it's hard to read into someone like this. But I think that your call down is reasonable and certainly not a punt, even at micro stakes.
So it's 2-1.
It's 2-1. The other two I think were fair punts, especially the ace queen.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for showing me that. I mean, that hand was very interesting. I mean, everyone can probably tell I haven't seen the hand before because, you know, it's takes and piecing together. You know, it's a very interesting spot, like where a lot of viewers are going to think there's no way I ever win here, but at the same time, you're sitting there thinking there's no way my opponent ever decides to check back turn with anything that now beats me on this river. So I think that, you know, it's a lesson in that, really, in that, you know, even though everyone is generally super nitty and they generally always have it, if their story just doesn't make any sense whatsoever, even for like a terrible player, because a terrible player is going to see the turn if he has a set, or if he has, you know, like a really good equity with a flush draw. Even those players are going to want to bet, you know. So just because he's bad doesn't mean he's not going to have similar turn ranges, you know, especially in this spot, I think. So
yeah,
obviously he's without a doubt picked the wrong guy. That much is clear. He clearly doesn't have any information on you, because there's no way I'm bluffing you here.
Probably tagged me now.
Oh yeah, never bluff this guy. That's what I've got you tagged as. I've also got call down light.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. Well, thanks for those. I hope people enjoyed that. I think that was some seriously interesting stuff. So thanks for not overselling it. It was certainly worth its salt when I got to see it in the end.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was punt or no punt. Bean loses 2-1, and we'll see if he can put it back next time. But thanks everyone for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.